All right, so it is 7 o'clock now. My name is Alexandra Samaco, the chair of the zoning board, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I would invite everybody to join us, whether you're in a room with a flag or not, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of
of the United States of America
and to
and to the
the
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to just do a quick roll call of who's present, starting with Mr. Fairfield.
Fairfield, aye.
Rath, aye. Hardikoff present.
Flanagan present.
And I am Alexandra Samaco, present. And let's see, we also have our town planner, Mr. Creveling, and our code enforcement officer, Mr. Jennison. And before we start, I am going to designate our alternate, Tracy Hardikoff, as a sitting board member tonight to ensure that we have a full board of 5 sitting. She will be taking place of Paul Thibodeau for the evening. Before we get into our case for tonight, I do want to call attention of the board members to a draft document that you each will have in front of you. After our last meeting, I sat down with Mr. Creveling, our new town planner, to kind of talk about what we could do to make sure that all of our motions and thus the findings that we issue after each meeting are as robust as we can make them when it comes to our findings, to make his job easier and to make sure that our written notices of decision are complete. And so in conjunction with discussing this with Mr. Creveling and also consulting the applicable rules of procedure and the statutes, we have come up with this worksheet that each member of the board can use in each meeting for each case to kind of write down and organize your findings. That way, once you have come to a conclusion and the discussion has been completed, you can utilize this to formulate any motion that you may choose to make.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that being said, I am going to move on to our one case on the matter for this evening. So I would ask that the applicants please come up to the table, and thank you all for being a little bit flexible with me. We're traveling for work, but I still want to make sure that we get this done.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Jim Shannon. I'm an attorney from Rochester, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the property owners, Christian Habershaw, his wife Mariah, and beautiful little girl Kaya.
Okay, Mr. Shannon, do we have an authorization on file with you in the land use office for you to speak for the applicant tonight?
I believe I signed that with Mr. Irvine, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I do see it here.
I see
Okay.
the owner's signature. I don't see Jim's signature on the paper.
Yeah, that was the problem.
Oh,
Can we grab his signature? Here. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
is there supposed to be a place on the form for him to sign it?
The form that I just gave is
It's different from this one.
Okay, so I'm going to call case 102-35-GR-25-VAR for owner Christian Habershaw, a request by the applicant for a variance from Article 4, Section 4.1.1, Table 2, to enlarge a kitchen, proposing a front setback of 10.5 feet where 40 feet is required and 17.8 feet of a side setback where 30 feet is required on Berry River Road. And I understand that we have the applicant's representative. So, Mr. Shannon, if you would like to walk us through the 5 criteria, that is the variance applicant form, starting with granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
Yes, Madam Chair, do you mind if I do just a little bit of background as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the Habershaws have been at home for several years, and they have a little girl, and they're new members to the community here relatively recently. The home that they own was built back in the early 70s, circa 1970, which predates the zoning. And as the board and anyone that's been, involved in zoning matters here in the town know that that's a extremely non-conforming subdivision. Pretty much most of the lots out there don't conform, unless they've been, massively merged. So this home was built, prior to the zoning. Since it was built, there was an additional lot that was added to it, so it's actually wider than the typical single lot out there. But the portion of that lot is improved with the septic system, driveway, and what have you. So there's a significant constraint of enlarging the property to the right, I would call it. If I could approach just quickly the screen. The home is here. Again, it was mostly on one of the two lots. Just convert the lot lines between them generally in the driveway. They also have this large portion in the back that is terrain issues. And as you can see in the house where the finger is a little alcove, we'll call it, where the existing galley kitchen is located. So because of the size of the home and the layout, they literally have no dining room. They have no kitchen to sit and have dinner. They sit in, in the good season like now, they'll be out in the back porch, which is covered. But, most of the time they don't have a kitchen, so it's a dining area. So the request is to enlarge the front of the home, essentially to square it off. The addition of approximately 106 feet, actually 112 feet, I believe it was. And as the chair indicated, there would be a slight increase in the nonconformity. The front doesn't change, but the side goes from 19.9 to 17.8 for a relative change. So as to the zoning criteria, first as to the not be contrary to the public interest, again, this is a highly congested, packed, historically non-conforming subdivision. So the public interest, in regards to the purpose of the zoning ordinance is kind of null and void in that subdivision. And so my understanding again historically is that this board and its predecessors have been, kind of understanding of the situation out there and kind of grant variances when they're within reason. And we kind of think that a simple addition of about a little over 100 square foot to square off the home and add a kitchen for this growing family is certainly in the realm of reasonable. To be consistent with the ordinance, again, the key purpose of the zoning ordinance is for, promote safe, harmonious, manageable development, health and safety, not do anything to put any members of the public at risk, preserve the essential nature of a community, and it recognizes the unique characteristics of each subdivision in a subdivision that predates the zoning ordinance. So we think that granted this variance is consistent with the spirit. So simply because, again, the relatively nominal increase in the nonconformity, when you weigh that against the impediment to the family in regards to their living situation, it makes sense. It's certainly harmonious with the neighborhood. And I am certainly is asking you to vote. There's no effect to the public safety. I mean, fronting encroachment is nominal. Actually, it's non-existent. It's only the side. Again, we believe that that's consistent with the spirit to be harmonious with this neighborhood. Doing this does nothing to diminish the nature of the Ferry River Road subdivision. Granted, the variance would do substantial justice is item number 3. And again, because of the nature of the subdivision and the small size, it certainly provides justice to this family to be able to sit down as a family unit and have dinner, especially if they, like most young families, want to have, Kaya to be a big sister someday. So to have some place to sit down for a family dinner, it certainly does justice to this family. But most importantly, it does no injustice to the community in which the home. And again, just reiterating the nature of that subdivision, most homes out there at one point were non-conforming. And personally, I had property in the other side of Longshore, and I had to get a variance in order to do anything along. Item 4, granted the variance would not diminish the property values of neighbors. And again, given the nature of the subdivision, there isn't any real factor in that. The addition is extremely reasonable. They're just putting in, the tiny area. Anything, if you can see the photo from the tax card, the little galley kitchen, I haven't referred to it yet, but it's pretty much a galley kitchen. There are photos in there that the board perhaps saw as to how small that is when they're just simply cooking in the kitchen, and they had Kaya and mom and grandma. It's just kind of small. So in regards to the diminishing of the property values, squaring up that home does nothing to diminish anyone's issue property values. So we believe that it certainly meets the criteria for affect the neighbors negative. Literal enforcement of the ordinance without an unnecessary hardship to these folks, and I think it's pretty clear that without having a kitchen, it's pretty much a hardship for a family, to anything. And I indicated earlier, but they at the time they sit on the couch and eat with dinner tray in front of them, as it's not saw in the old sitcom 70s or 80s. They probably didn't, but we all did, unless they're watching reruns. And again, because there's really no reasonable way to do this to the right, so to speak, looking at the property from Ferry River Road, it's unless we wanted to build it in the back and completely change the wiring and the plumbing and all that. The reasonableness of the ordinance certainly doesn't call for somebody to go so far out of their way to have such unreasonable expense. By doing this, it really doesn't diminish or anything to change the and it's kind of in conformance with that neighborhood. Item 2, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the purpose of the ordinance and the application of it to this property. So again, I just have to reiterate the nature of that subdivision. And this home is simply asking for a minor addition or encroachment, measurement of the encroachment. Doesn't do anything to violate the spirit of the ordinance and all the other criteria we talked about. Spirit of why we have what is here for the purpose of helping folks like this that are in a tough situation to be able to do something reasonable. And so the conclusion is that we think it's reasonable that they have a kitchen, kind of straightforward and simple. Excuse me, not a kitchen, a dining area. So for all those reasons, we certainly hope that the board will agree that the applicant's evidence is sufficient to find in favor of granting the variance. I do note for the record that the affected abutters have sent in letters to the town, which we've all seen, that I think it is unanimous that everyone agrees that this is reasonable and that. So with that being said, I would be happy to take questions for myself or the Habitats if you have any.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it for questions from the board now. Since you're all very, very tiny on my screen, we'll start with Mr. Fairfield and just go down the line in case any of the board members have questions.
Good, thank you.
No questions.
I do not have questions, Madam Chair.
I do not have questions.
Okay, thank
Actually,
you.
I have I have a comment. I actually appreciate that you went through and got those letters from all of the abutters. I think it was a good testament to the work you went through to try to get this approved.
And at this time, I will open public comment for anybody that is online or in the meeting room who would like to speak for or against this request. If you're online, just feel free to use the raise hand feature to let us know that you have a comment. And I'll ask the board if there's anybody stepping forward in the meeting room.
There is no one in the meeting room but applicant and their legal representative. Madam Chair, would you like us to read the 2 letters that had come in reference to the case?
Yes, if we don't have any additional public comment online or in the room, I will close public comment and ask that Ms. Hardikoff, since you offered, read those into the record.
There's 3 letters.
I think there's 3, actually.
Thank you. The first letter is to the Zoning Board of Adjustments. I, Paul Berry, reside at 464 Berry River Road, Barrington, New Hampshire, 03825. See no reason not to grant a variance I think that it would make the home more functional and attractive, and I don't see any impact now or in the future. Sincerely, Paul Berry. The next one is, to whom it may concern, I've reviewed the proposed building plan to add a small addition to the front of my neighbor's home at 459 Berry River Road to give them more space on the front of their home. I have no concerns about any issues with abutment and fully support them receiving a variance to allow this project. I view this project as a common sense change that will be a net positive for both them and the surrounding plots that border their property, like my own, and that was signed by Eric Pryor. Next, we have to the Land Use Department, to whom it may concern. We'd like to respond in favor of the variance at 459 Berry River Road. We feel that the proposition to enlarge the kitchen is warranted due to the unique circumstances of the existing home. The Habershaws are a wonderful welcome and fruitful addition to our community, and this variance would allow their growing family to flourish there. The renovation would also add value to the Berry River Road and our neighborhood. Thank you, and God bless Dale Warren and Lisa, I think it's LaMarcia, at 555 Berry River Road. And finally, to whom it may concern, this letter is to give permission to Christian and Mariah Habershaw, sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, to go ahead with their home renovations at 459 Berry River Road in Barrington. Thank you, Lawrence, and I can't even, Macy Julski? Am I saying that correct? Okay, and that is someone who resides at 449 Berry River Road. So for the neighbors or abutters in support of it.
And I did just reflect in that letter, those are the butters with, to whom the alcohol would go towards their lot line.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Back to you,
and
Madam Chair.
thank you, Ms. Hardikoff. I do see, actually, we do have a hand raised online, and that may have been either an oversight that I did not notice or just a little bit of a internet delay. So I am going to reopen public comment just to allow Tammy Nunez to make any statement that she may want to make.
Sure. It's actually Ed Nunez, my wife's Tammy. We own 716 Berry River Road. I'm in support. Anything to beautify the neighborhood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nunez. And I will close again public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, are there any follow-up questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I may just raise a point of order, and I don't believe there's an issue on it. I just want to make sure no one can have an issue, but I served on the board with Ms. Hardikoff. I was actually on the board of directors of ran. So my clients are aware of this, don't believe there's any issue, but I need to put that in the record.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Ms. Hardikoff, do you wish to remain seated as a board member today and vote?
Yes, at no time did we have a financial relationship, probably just two people doing good in the world.
Okay, I don't have any issue with that. So at this time, I'm going to turn to the board discussion. And just to better facilitate a discussion that can go into the record, I am going to just go through the 5 criteria one at a time to make sure that if any of the board members have commentary they want to share, we can go through that before I request any motions. So the first one is any thoughts on whether or not that granting the variance would be contrary to the public interest. I personally do not think that this would be contrary to the public interest, but I invite the board to share their thoughts. Okay.
I agree. I don't think that it would be in any way contrary to the public interest.
I agree. It does not alter any of the essential characteristics of the area or the property. Moving on to the spirit of the ordinance, whether or not it would be observed in granting this variance, I do believe that the spirit of the ordinance would be observed here, but what say you, board?
I'm of the opinion that we have a non-conforming lot to begin with, but we have an entire collection of non-conforming lots that predate the zoning and were originally created as camps and became lots of records. So they are what they are, and we are working very hard within the framework of that to ensure that land use in that area is both improving values and providing people with the homes and the most appropriate land use on very small lots.
I would add, I think, part of the reason for the setbacks is to reduce clutter, and they've already merged two lots, which in a sense has already reduced clutter.
Thank you. The third criteria is whether or not granting the variance would do substantial justice. So I open that to board discussion.
I would suggest that with 4 letters of support from the nearest neighbors saying that this would do substantial justice, that I don't have any contrary opinion and would agree with the neighbors that are there on a daily basis.
I appreciate that. The fourth criteria is whether or not it would diminish the values of the surrounding property, which I do not think is a concern here at all.
No, I agree. I think that any improvements to any of the properties on there are ways to absolutely increase property values of that entire community.
Agree. And finally, whether or not there's an unnecessary hardship created by denial of this variance. And, when it comes to these non-conforming lots, there can be hardship created there because people are backed into a corner where they really don't have any other options. So that would be my opinion, but I am open to the thoughts of the board before we move to any motions.
I would also add that other properties might have more adequate kitchens, and they're just by chance have a property that doesn't have the kitchen they need. That's the hardship to me.
Understood. Are there any final comments by the board before we entertain motions? No? Okay. And then at this time, I would be open to a motion regarding this case 102-35-GR-25 for a variance.
I'd make a motion, Madam Chair, that we approve case 10235 GR 25 VAR for the property located at 459 Berry River Road, that granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest because the subdivision predates the zoning ordinances and has the characteristics of very small lots, but certainly requires that we consider land use and livability. That the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the proposed improvement to the structure would pose no harm to public health or safety, would be harmonious to the vast majority of the homes in this highly dense area, and that granting the variance would do substantial justice because given the nature of the property as it presently exists, there is no reasonable way other than taking the house down, turning it completely around and redoing it to actually be able to use the home in an appropriate way for a family. The following values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. And in fact, we find when improvements take place that it often adds to the value of the neighborhoods, and that the special circumstances for the property are actually shown on the survey plan, that the home was originally placed to the front of the property, 2 lots merged to make a large lot, and that it's not reasonable to try and expand the dining area in any other space.
Do I have a second?
Flanagan, second.
Okay, and then we'll do a roll call vote starting with Mr. Fairfield.
Fairfield, aye.
Graff, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Flanagan, aye.
And Samako, aye. So the motion passes unanimously. And congratulations to the Habershaw family. I can't see you, but I know you're there. And you will be receiving a written notice of this decision.
Happy new dining room.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to review and approval of the minutes. Everybody should have received that copy. I do have one change on page 5, line 116. It says vote 4-2. That was actually a vote of 3-2.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes at this time with the amendment listed.
Do I have a second? Okay.
Second.
Was that Mr. Graff? Perfect. Roll call vote, starting with Mr. Fairfield.
Fairfield, aye.
Graff, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Flanagan, aye.
And Samako, aye. Okay, we'll move on to any other business that may come before the board. I don't have anything, but Mr. Jennison or Mr. Creveling, is there anything that you needed to raise with us this evening?
Nothing for me.
Okay, anything any of the seated board members have to raise this evening?
No.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
Second?
Okay, roll call starting with Mr. Fairfield.
Fairfield, aye.
Right, graphite.
Hardikoff, aye?
Flanagan, aye.
Samaco, aye. We are adjourned at 7:26 p.m., not 4:26.